Hi, this is Doc Danna. Forgive my voice. I woke up this morning and sounded like this, but we're still going to keep going.
Absolutely.
That's what we're supposed to do, right? But we're back with Doc and Dana. Today we are going to talk about offense. People being offended, walking in offense. I was just sharing earlier with Doc that I don't know if it's fortunate or unfortunate that I prided myself on not being offended, that I don't get offended, which for the most part is true, not like most people, I don't feel. But after reading a couple of books, and one of the books, or a couple of the books I've already mentioned on our previous episodes, Lisa Turkerish, her books talked a little bit about that, and then the book The Bait of Satan, which has been around for
20 years
for a long time, and I've been wanting to read it, and I just never would purchase the book, and I found it in a box of books that somebody set out, and the Lord just provided it for me. So I guess He wanted me to read it, and because I think He wanted to show me that I do walk in offense that I didn't even realize that I was.
See, you did.
So sometimes that's what God does, doesn't He?
That's why we call him Jehovah Sneaky sometimes. He sneaks up on you when you don't know what he's doing. He allows you to come across things, and he's kind of got his own trap set a little bit, where it gets your heart going a certain direction, and then he deals with it.
Yeah, I'm only halfway through it, maybe a little more than halfway through it. It is a really good book. Again, it's The Bait of Satan by John Bevere. It is so good. Oh my goodness. So if you think you're one of those people that don't get offended, you're probably wrong. I hope that doesn't offend you. But because I'm serious, I mean, my husband, my family will tell you that I've said that for years. I don't get offended. I don't get offended. But apparently after reading this, I do. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, Jesus and the book both covered it in a lot of different ways. Jesus talked about the parable of the sower, and that one ground, the word doesn't get deep enough that people have a overall good knowledge of Christ, His ways, what God does in our lives, and the root doesn't get deep enough, and they are the first candidates of somebody that's easily offended. Because he says when persecution, our trials, our sufferings come, they are offended and fall away. And in that thought, in that idea of what he's trying to say is, there is an offense that comes, which simply we've talked about a little bit already. It comes from a Greek word called scandalizo. I'm not Greek, so I don't say it right. But it means a bait or a trap, something that offends or trips you up. You were doing good, and then all of a sudden somebody acted a certain way. All of a sudden it looks like God is not going to answer a prayer because you prayed and prayed. It's not happened yet. So you get offended. Well, what am I doing wrong? Whatever the case may be. And because of it, it begins to stir a whole grab bag of emotions, reflection, looking at yourself, looking for the problem, looking, why ain't God doing this? Have I offended Him? Am He angry with me? Have I sinned? And you get into all these circle conversations in your own mind, and if you're not careful, you will actually talk yourself into something that wasn't true to begin with. But just because things didn't happen the way you thought they might, then all of a sudden these thoughts rise up. I was telling Dana while we were just kind of talking over some thoughts about it, that I went through a season with God in ministry things. We mentioned it a little bit on Ask, Seek, and Knock, and why things weren't coming to part the way I thought they should. God, you called me, what's going on here? And I got wrapped up in an offensiveness in that towards God and myself, failures of my past before I ever knew Jesus, things like that, that I allowed to make me think that I was almost being disqualified or that I just misheard God wrongly or something. And I began to really wonder, and in one of those sessions we did, I talked about how, God, I feel called. Am I not called? Why are you not opening a door? Why are you not doing something more in my life? The real offense was, is there something you're holding against me? Is there something that I've done so horribly before I came to you that has forbidden me forever really being used? And in my own subtle way, I made a judgment against him. When all he was trying to do is ask, seek, and knock, keep coming after me. There's something I need to deal in your attitudes, your thoughts, your thought patterns. You're expecting all of this to miraculously happen quickly. But even Jesus, my own son, worked with the guys for, most people think, a year to a year and a half before he ever sent them out in ministry. And so it's easy, unfortunately, to begin to let all this self-condemnation come in where you begin to think things. Jesus told the guys on the night that he was betrayed, he said, you will all be offended in me tonight. They were going, they didn't know what was going to happen. They didn't know that Judas was going to betray him, that the guards would be there to take him away, that Peter would cut off the ear of one of the guards, and Jesus would say no. And he picks it up and heals it right back on the guy's head and said, these things must happen. But they had in their mind what they thought Messiah meant, the coming of the kingdom, the restoring Israel to its prominence and its authority and its glory days in the kingdom of God under the Son of David and so forth. And all of a sudden they see him being taken away. All kinds of thoughts came into their minds. Did we misbelieve? Did we think he was something he wasn't? Why is he going to be killed? Remember in Matthew 16, when Jesus said to the guys, he says, who do men say that I am? And they said, Jeremiah or Elijah or one of the other prophets. And because he showed those tendencies. He showed the miraculous like Elijah. He showed the sympathy, like Jeremiah did. And then Peter jumps up and says, you're the Christ. And he says, well done, well said, And you got that straight from my Father. He had to give you that revelation for you to know that. And then he goes in this discourse and says that the Son of Man must be crucified and die, and 3 days later arise. And the same Peter that recognized who he was, all of a sudden said, no, God forbid that should happen to you. And Jesus turns and looks at Peter and says, get thee behind me, Satan. Now, he really wasn't addressing Peter as much as he was addressing Satan. And Peter fluctuated from divine revelation to demonic revelation in just a moment because of the offense that he felt in his heart. That can't be. You're the Son of God. You're the Messiah. That cannot happen to you because of how they thought the victory would be won. So Jesus tells the guys, don't be offended in me, but you're going to be. And I will help you, basically is what he's saying, and bring you back from that type thing. That's why Peter in 1 Peter 1 talks about he's resurrected us again to a living hope. How? When they seen him, they put their hands in his scars, his side. He blew the Spirit and said, receive the Spirit of God. And all of a sudden, the hope that died when Jesus died, and the pain and the feeling and the offense, and maybe we believe all this came rising up within their hearts. But the moment they seen him, Peter says we were resurrected again to a living hope, not somebody who died on the cross and is forever gone, but somebody that did that for our eternal redemption, and now we have hope again. So throughout Scripture, God talks about that. We can be offended with God. We can be offended with how His will plays out. I know Christians, you know Christians now that are offended because this prayer hasn't seemed to be answered. Wasn't answered in the timely way that we wanted it to. Now we've gone through this time of trial, testing, hurt, pain, and then we begin to be offended with Him in those thoughts, right? And so offense will come, like the book says, and like the word in the Greek says, it's a trap. It's a trap to trap you, to have you have an offense against God, yourself, your family, brothers and sisters in the body of Christ that you think shortchanged you on connection or confidence or whatever, and that type of a thing. And all of a sudden we carry this. Now we're, like you said, I didn't know I was offended. Because we're not saying, I hate that person. God, I hate you. I don't know why you don't do what you said you would do. We don't just walk away, but then all this grab of thoughts just keeps working at a level in us that is hard to discern because we don't see it as a major sin to be somewhat that
because
way.
when you deal with people, you get irritated.
No. You had to dig for the right word you wanted there.
I did.
Yeah.
Because that's what I just always called it. Like, I'm not offended, I'm irritated with them.
Yeah. Okay.
So we put another twist on it. But it's funny because as we're sitting here talking, thinking about the situation that I didn't think was an offense, but it was. It actually isn't toward me. I'm carrying the offense for someone else.
Oh, okay. Right. And that's easy to do. That's easier than we think.
And I think I do that more than I realized that not so much for me, because as we all know, there are people that know me. If I'm frustrated about something or irritated about something, I usually will tell you.
Yeah, I notice you don't hold a whole lot back.
Yeah, I usually don't. I just tell you because for me, it's better for me. It may not be better for you that I do that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But I'm trying to get better about that. I've not conquered that yet. But so it's because I'm quick to just let you know if you aggravate me or if I get aggravated, I'll tell you. Well, what did you mean by that? I'm gonna need you to wait. What?
Yeah.
You know. But for someone else, I'm like, well, why didn't you just say this? You should have said this.
Right.
And so I carry the offense for them.
That can get heavy.
It's dumb, I know. But I think people do that and don't even realize they're doing it.
I think they do. I think a whole lot they do. Whether it's what somebody said about your husband or one of your daughters or anything like that. And that is a very difficult thing. You know, psychologists came out years ago and said when you're communicating with somebody, look at them and say back to them, this is what I heard, or this is what you meant.
Yeah.
Right? And yet we know these things that we should do, but we don't always do. And the moment, you know how we talked about tension and reconciliation, you know, where it comes to being resolved in your heart, when you don't talk to that person and say, hold on, I heard you say this. Is this how you meant that? And then if they say, yeah, that's very well how I meant it, then you know, then you go to the next cycle of resolving that with, I am choosing today not to keep thinking on this, Lord.
Well, it all comes down to communication. And that is a big, big, big thing with me.
Yes.
Communicate. Well, did you ask them? Did you talk to them about it? Have y'all communicated? Have you communicated? And often it's like, well, no. Well, then that's your problem. Just communicate, because maybe it's not what you think it is. And then if it is, then you got to work it out.
Then that brings up a whole nother step of how are you going to resolve this in your heart.
Yeah.
You know, I just thought of this, and I don't know if my boss will ever listen to these, but we've always had a deal, if you will. All tech work is Computer Trends, and I get paid a regular check. But Computer Trends, a long time ago, didn't want to be involved with websites, databases, or cabling. And they said, you're welcome to do it. You're welcome to do it on company time. And we will pay you the hours or whatever type thing, whatever the charge is. So I just got through doing this, not totally through, I'll be there another day at least, job in Gaffney with 48 drops. And, you know, I've spent probably 35 hours on them. Well, I know that we're not as prosperous as a company as we used to be. So all of a sudden my thoughts, now my boss hadn't said a word different than anything we've ever done. And it just I kept thinking, what if he's still going to do it that way? Or because we could use some extra money, he's going to want to just charge that and maybe just give me a little extra for doing with it or whatever. And I went a day and a half with that in my mind. Now, he hadn't said a word yet. This is all in my head, every bit of it. And so I got back to the shop Friday and I said, I just want to ask you, because I know we have moments of struggle. We're a small company, smaller than we used to be, this, that, and the other. And I just simply said, are we still going to do things like we've usually done, that I get paid for the wiring and things like that? And he just smiled and said, well, yeah. Now, here's the bad part. The bad part is I went through a day and a half in my mind. Well, if he does say that he's not going to pay me that way and just going to be regular hours like normal, am I able to not be bothered by that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I just lived through this, and I could have very easily just assumed in my mind that he was going to change the rules a bit or something. And in my mind, I thought, well, this is the job I have, so I'm going to have to be okay with that. Right? Yeah. But something, and people will say, well, that's not a big deal. Really? If you're thinking of hundreds of dollars that you're not going to get and you could really use, that becomes something that you could very easily be offended for.
Yeah.
Thankfully, the Lord just nudged me and said, just ask him. You've worked with him for 33 years. Just ask him.
It's that simple. Just talk.
Yeah, it really is. And I thank God that I said what I said. He said what he said. And I put it to rest, and I'm not worried about it now.
Why do you think that some people just, because in my mind, and obviously in yours, maybe that situation's a little bit different, that it's just
Right.
not as just easy just to talk, just to communicate. And people, they don't, either they just don't do it, or they're expecting the other party to come, well, they need to come to me. And it's like, yeah, but you're the one you're bothered by this.
You're the one having the thoughts that's going on.
So you go to them and talk to that person about it, or them about it, or whatever the situation may be. Why do people struggle with that so much? I mean, you're not going to be able to answer that question, but...
Actually, to a degree.
Perfect.
In my case, was the next step. Okay, what if he says that? Am I going to get mad? Am I going to get irritated? And I'm going to be accusatory at all, which we've never been that way with each other. But yet those thoughts came up. And then my next thought was, okay, if I feel that way, am I going to do something stupid about it, or just let it go, forgive it, and forget it?
Yeah.
So since there's an unknown thing in there,
So there's a fear.
bottom line, there's a fear. How will they react? What will they say? And what's worse is, how am I going to react back towards them? And I'm going to look at them and with a feeling that you feel like they did something, offended somebody you care about. Am I going to just get mad and say, well, you're just an idiot. I'm not talking to you again. You say, well, I wouldn't say something so strongly. Well, we might not say it, but when we internalize that
Yes.
and still do it, and then we've got this extra issue with God, be at peace with all men. And as much as it is in you. Well, the part of it being in me is, if they don't let it go, and they're going to stick to their guns, the only way you're going to keep peace is for you to give it up and let it go.
Yeah.
You see? So a lot of times, we don't want to be brought to that firm thing.
Yeah.
I've got to make a decision how I'm going to do with this.
But we don't, well, I just wonder though if that's really what people are thinking though. Or,
I don't know if it's thinking as much, excuse me, or just the emotions that come in us.
yeah. I don't know, it's, that's the thing I get irritated about.
Yeah, I know, me too.
It's just talk, and I will talk something to death, I know that, but,
And then you got to let it lay wherever it lays. I don't do a lot of philosophy, because philosophy is just a simple way of living. What is your belief system on how to live your life? Whether it's Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, whoever. But the Stoics is what they were called. Marcus Aurelius and all these guys, in how they led and did things, his basic philosophy was, when a person shows you who they are, don't fight with them, don't argue with them, don't go back and forth with them. You can talk to them and see if there's any way to get past where you are. And then when you see where you really are with them, you have to decide how you're going to walk towards them there on out. And forget it, because you may never persuade them some other way. And that could mean the death of a relationship, or it not being as much as it used to be. So that speaks of a loss to a degree in your life, a relationship with this person or persons. And we don't like loss. We don't like defeats. We don't like not winning the argument or the discussion. And so all that in roundabout ways affects how we look at ourselves. And are we protecting ourselves? Or are we walking in a Christ-like forgiveness, peace manner? Are we doing what God would really want us to do? And am I going to really lose this relationship over this?
yeah.
And I've had decisions that I parted ways with people I've been friends with for 20 years. All because we could not get past a certain point, and in that point, I saw how they really looked at me.
Yeah.
Do I hate them? No. Do I love them? Yes. Do I still pray for them once in a while? Yes. Will that relationship ever be the same? Probably not, unless they can come to the place where they see that what they said or did was really wrong. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, but some people never come to that place. So then what do you do with that?
Well, that's where you give it to God. You pray over it. God, if you want me to pursue this farther, and this one particular person, I apologized to him twice, and I did nothing wrong. I wanted to restore the relationship.
Yeah, yeah.
And basically he said, I think for a while you just don't need to come around.
Yeah.
Another pastor. And I looked at that and I said, okay, as you wish. And I left it that way. Now, that's a 21 or 2 year relationship I had with this guy.
Yeah.
Now, did that hurt? Yeah, that hurt. I was very shocked that he had the attitude that he had at the time. And I'm just, so you can't, you got two choices. You either pray over it and you let it go, or you keep nursing that in a psycho manner in your heart and thoughts, which will either make you more tender if you let God touch you, or it will make you much harder.
Yeah. And I think oftentimes that's what happens. And it all goes back to the fruit of the Spirit.
It really does.
Yeah.
The love of God that is, and the truth of God that is first peaceable, merciful, walking in integrity between you and God. God, is there anything between me and you?
Yeah.
I've dealt with this the best I think I can at the moment. You are welcome to revisit this anytime in my life that you want to. You're welcome to deal with that other person that we can fully, totally reconcile if that's your will and that type of a thing. Otherwise, I'm going to give this to you and leave it there. Mm-hmm. And if you ever do anything with it, fine, I'll obey you in that. And that's kind of what I did with this pastor, and that's what I've done with a couple other relationships in my life. I dealt with it the best I could. And during that whole season of whatever time that was, and with him we went through 6 months of at least disagreements on things. And so that's where the offense can come in. Fortunately, I did not allow it to turn me to hate, bitterness, or anger that would continue to work. So that is how sometimes the offense comes. It causes you to trip up. Now, when you trip up, if you walk right now out on your patio and you tripped on your little rug there, is David going to get hurt? Am I going to get hurt? The only person that's going to hurt when you stumble is you. Mm-hmm. So offense's biggest bait and problem is what it does to you.
Right.
In your psyche, in your spirit, your soul, how you look at things, how you're processing thoughts, how you're processing your own emotions in the midst of it, and letting God lay you open bare and touch this and touch that and let those things go. And that's working with individuals. So what you said is true. Remember, even Jesus said, if you come to bring your offering to the altar or your gift, and there you remember that somebody has an offense against you. Leave your gift, go and try to make it right with that person. At least give it the shot. At least try to talk to them. At least say, this is what I think is going on in a relationship. I would like to heal our relationship. I would like to see it be better than it ever was. And if they just say, you know what, you showed me your true self, I'm not interested with this relationship going forward. And if they say that, you've done what you can do to be at peace with them.
Yeah.
They rejected it. At that point, you leave it on the altar, that feeling, and you say, Lord, I tried.
Yeah.
Right? And then it doesn't keep recycling over and over in your mind and your heart. Now, you may want to fix it. You may force it and try to fix it.
That's my problem.
You're a forcer?
I can be. Because I want to always be restoration. I always lean toward restoration. And I want to, we got to make it right. Got to make it right. Got to make it right.
You know, God's like that in a big way. He sent his only son for that.
Yeah.
And we have people all the time. There will be people in hell that God will grieve over for eternity.
Yeah.
That went there against his will, his desire, his love, and everything. Yeah. You know? So there is something of a maturity, or at least a peacefulness, that you allow the Lord to bring you to and let that pass.
Well, I want to talk more about this for sure. We're going to take a short break and come back for part 2 of this, because we can get into a whole lot of stuff about
Oh,
this.
yes, this is a very big subject.
Yeah,
Bigger than we
it
think
is.
about sometimes,
It
right?
is.
So if you have a question that's stirred up in your mind, in your heart, in this short discussion, write it down. When a podcast come out in a week or two, then put that question there, that statement, and we will try to address it the next time. All right? We'll see you in the next session.